The sky was overcast, the clouds dark, threatening rain. The walls of Daerol rose before them, grey and bare. Streaks of grime lined the old structure. Upon the crenellations patrolled crossbowmen. The wall's masonry was magnificent. It had been built during the time of Thaelen, the Northern Empire, Illyria of the North, some had called it. Now it was but a memory. Next, a guard said. The queue they were in went forward. They were mounted on their horses, and clad in their travelling clothes. Both were a little bored. "How long is it going to take?" Taela said with a sigh. "Relax, Taela. We'll get there." Thaelen gazed back. The ruins of what had once been the outer walls stood like a shattered ring around the city. Many other ruins dotted the landscape. Daerol had once been the second city of Thaelen, after its capital, Gathiel. There were stories of Daerol's fountains, of its marvelous buildings and its fair gardens. And they spoke of the exquisite Grand Temple, originally dedicated to Nuvia, in the time before all the gods were worshipped under a single roof. They spoke of its marble pillars, its granite floors, and its lifelike frescoes. Oh, how far the city had fallen. Next, the queue went forward again. Now there was only one before them. The guard was most likely in his 30s. He wore riveted chainmail, a tabard that was red and green. Upon it was embroidered 2 Daelirs, the small songbird that was the namesake for both the city and the country. The guard had a sheathed sword, and was holding a pencil and a book. "Next," he said again. "Please state your reason for entering the city." "We are travelers, seeking a place to stay for the night," Taela said. The guard noted down what she had said. "And your names?" "I am Baara." She lied. "And this is Gihirel." "All right. Please note that horses are not allowed on the streets without permit, nor are weapons. We have a stable right around the corner inside. It's connected to a guard station. You'll have to leave any weapons there as well. Don't worry, it's a heavily protected building. No thefts within the last 10 years. Welcome to Daerol." "Thank you," Taela said. Thaelen gave the guard a respectful nod. Once they had left their horses behind, they made their way throughout the city. Most of the buildings were tall and made of wood. A few stone or brick houses were to be found, but they were few. The streets were neatly paved, with large square slabs, though here and there it had been repaired with rough cobble. Both Thaelen and Taela were struck by just how run down the city was. a far cry from the city of the history books. And yet here and there could be seen signs of its glorious past, hidden away in old buildings that had survived to the current times, or in masonry reused in new houses. The walls, though somewhat dilapidated, still showed excellent craftsmanship. A large number of people were about on the main street of the city, going either in towards the city's center or out of it. They followed the street until they came to the square of Elidas, a circular square at the heart of the common district. From there they turned east, following the curve of the street. They passed through the wall that separated the common district and the temple district. They continued to follow the street until they came to the temple hill. As they ascended up old steps, Thaelen gazed at the ruins. The grand temple of Daerol had been destroyed by the fires a little over 3 centuries before, when Ranun and the puppet kings had been toppled. The temple that now rose was smaller and less glamorous. But its library, which had survived the fires largely undestroyed, was still famed throughout northern Daeria. Upon a partly overgrown piece of rubble, he saw an old inscription, just barely readable. In time, all answers are revealed, the shadows cast aside, and truth unveiled. He did not know the line, but doubtless it came from the Holy Scriptures. Just as they approached the temple, rain began to fall, and thunder echoed from somewhere south of the city. The temple rose before them. It was about 20 meters tall. Its outside was plastered white, and there was little decor to be found on its facade. 5 short steps led up to the entrance, which stood open. On either side of the entrance stood 2 statues, one of a man, the other of a woman, their angelic wings raised in glory. There were no plaques on their pedestals, yet it was clear who they were. The Makers, first of all souls and eldest, even now, long after their passing. The All-Mother and All-Father. All mortals of Eathal descended from them, the All-Mother and All-Father. As they passed the statues, Thaelen spoke solemnly. And here upon this earth shall ye learn our craft, and ye shall learn that it is alike to music. The room they entered was 14 by 6 meters. The room was alike to the outside, with little decor. Behind them, priests began to shut the doors, for the rain had begun to pour down in sheets. There were a few priests and priestesses talking to various people that had come to the temple for aid. Medical aid, mostly, but also advice on life choices and the like. Thaelen and Taela stood there for a moment, a little unsure of whom they should talk to. They did not have to wait long, though, for a young priestess walked up to them. "Can I help you with something?" She was about their age, or perhaps a little younger. She was clad in white robes that had a hood, the traditional temple garment. Her eyes were greenish-grey, and her hair was blonde. It was braided, and fell over her left shoulder. Around her neck hung a golden necklace in the shape of a sun. Around her neck hung a golden necklace in the shape of the sun. Yes, Thaelen began. "We wish to gain access to the library of this temple." The priestess eyed them carefully. Then she spoke. "That can be arranged, but you'll have to speak to the high priest first. He should not be busy at this current moment. If you would follow me, please." "Thank you. Please, lead the way," Taela said. They followed the priestess into the prayer sanctum, which was full of priests chanting in Elmirian. The makers were. They sang, and light was made. The first line of the Holy Scriptures. The sanctum was some 40 meters in length and 19 meters in width. Alcove-like walkways went along the upper wall. Following those would eventually take one to the stairs up to the tower. Beyond the sanctum was the shrine, located at the base of the tower. There 11 statues stood in a half circle. These were the 11 gods of the Divine Council, the leaders of the gods. From left to right stood Nuvia, Anole, Telanos, Emelos, Vania, Iliva, Nithia, Agnasia, Thuzaros, Koroth, and Osina. It was Iliva who stood at the center of the half circle, signifying her role as the de facto head of the gods. She was the goddess of light, and was the sun that rose every morning. She was depicted wearing a dress, yet her left foot was depicted as a metal boot. In her left hand she held a spear, raised towards the skies. She was winged, just like the statues of the makers at the entrance. And she was crowned with a halo-like crown. The priestess led them through an arched doorway in the western wall. A corridor lay beyond it, going along the sanctum. At one end there was a flight of stairs going up and down. The other end led to a room of some sort. She took them towards the room. "Wait here," she said. The priestess said. She knocked on the door, and a muffled "Oh, enter," was heard. She then went in, leaving the pair behind. Thaelen and Taela waited in silence. They could hear muffled voices coming from the room, but could not make out what they were saying. From the prayer sanctum were heard lines from the scriptures. Atalin ad intiemin en, Iliva iliam, Vania apiem,
Ane ethia ethiliam. Satha exuliam atal ad intiemin eno.
The children of the makers are Iliva of light, Vania of wisdom,
And Nithya of the earth. Satha the betrayer
is a child of the makers, no longer. After a while the door opened once more, and the priestess ushered them in. The room was an office, about the same size as the room they'd waited in. In the eastern wall there were 2 windows, looking out on the temple gardens. Bookshelves lined the eastern wall, as well as the southern. A desk stood near the center of the room. Behind it sat a man. His hair was a golden blonde and was cut short. He was clean-shaven. Like the priestess, he wore white robes, but his were embroidered with golden threads, forming into delicate and detailed patterns. He bore a resemblance to the priestess. Perhaps they were related. "You can leave, Anea," he said. The priestess bowed, then left, closing the door behind her. "She said you wanted to gain access to the library. What for?" "We wish to go through the visitor records," Taela began. "And some tomes as well." Tell me, what reason does a pair of Elrian travelers, if I am not mistaken by your accents, have to seek through such important documents? And these tomes, which ones are being discussed? It was Thaelen who answered. "We are looking for a person who came to this temple." "An old friend," Taela added. Thaelen continued. "We hoped that there might be some information about his whereabouts, in either the documents or the tomes that he was reading." The high priest sat in silence for a few seconds, his hands locked together. "A person we are looking for came to this temple. And did this person happen to be a mage, by any chance?" I'm not following," Thaelen said. "Elven ears, black hair, and brilliant green eyes. There are few of Elrian descent with that appearance, Thaelen Lithsvyrd Aveir. For that is whom you are you not?" I'm... Thaelen stuttered, taken aback. "The laymen may not recognize you, but I am learned. I once even met your mother. Will you allow us into the library or not?" Taela asked impatiently. "Why should I allow mages into the library, So you can go and make problems like last time? My predecessor lost his position as high priest due to what that Helthyr did. and I have no intention of committing the same mistake. By all means, I should report your presence in the city. Be glad that I do not. But, Thaelen began, who will ever know? If you can please help us, then we'll just be on our merry way and you'll not have to deal with us anymore. Or you can just be on your merry way now, and I will not have to deal with you anymore. As I said, be glad that I do not report your presence. Good day. But Taela tried. Good day. They looked at each other. A second passed. Then they left the office. As they came into the waiting room, they gazed at each other once more. What now? Thaelen asked. We'll figure out a way, Taela said, annoyed. She wasn't going to let some lousy high priest get in their way. Maybe we should just head back, Thaelen said. It seems that this was for naught. If I may. They turned, surprised that they had been overheard. It was the priestess that had spoken. They had thought that she had left. He didn't give you permission, I take it? No, he didn't, Taela said, still annoyed, though more at herself for being reckless. If they had spoken about the guild or magic, they could have been discovered. Now the priestess spoke in a hushed voice. He should remain in his office for at least the next hour. I know the librarian quite well. I could potentially get you in there. You could? Thaelen asked. Shh! That door is not soundproof. Lead the way, Taela said quietly. The priestess nodded and led them once more down the corridor, this time all the way to its other end. She led them down the stairs and into the corridor below. Halfway down it was a door. The priestess knocked. After a while it was opened. A dwarf stood there in the entrance. He stood about 1 meter and 30 centimeters from the ground, had a long brown beard that had begun to grey, a small moustache, and short hair. His nose was large. He was clad in white robes, not unlike those of the other priests, but his had blue embroidery. This marked him as the temple librarian, and as a follower of Telanos, the god of knowledge. Anea, the dwarf said. Noticing Thaelen and Taela, he added, Who are you? They wish to go through the visitor records, the priestess said. Do they now? Well, that's fine. I'll just have to see the permits. Galsrune, she began. Would I have brought them here if they didn't have permits? Knowing you, Anea, yes. Do they have permits or not? Galsrune, they are in need. What would Mother mine have thought if you didn't help people? The dwarf was silent for a while. Then he rubbed his forehead and sighed. "All right. But if I get in trouble because of you, Anea, mark my words." "Thank you, grandfather." "Grandfather?" Taela asked. "I adopted her mother," the dwarf said. "That is all you need to know." He ushered them in. The room beyond the door was large, and was directly below the prayer sanctum, and so was about the same size. Pillars and arches supported the ceiling and the sanctum above. Bookcase after bookcase lined the walls, and stood in between the pillars. The shelves were filled with books, tomes, and old scrolls. Most of the room was dark or dimly lit. Lanterns had only been lit close to the entrance. Galsrund went over to a desk and retrieved a lantern, which he lit with a candle. He then beckoned Thaelen and Taela to come with him. "Follow me. Anea, I would like to have a word with you. Remain here till I return." "Yes, grandfather," she said, silently. The dwarf led them into the library. Thaelen glanced at the books. "It's quite a collection." "Yes, and many are old too. The oldest ones we have date back from before the Dark War. Some even back to old Thelden. One could probably find many things now forgotten if one went through them all. But few are in good enough condition to be read." He led them down one of the alleys formed by the bookcases. At its end was a small archway. Beyond it lay a small room with many more bookcases. Towards the wall on the left side stood a non-remarkable table. A chair stood next to it. The dwarf placed the lantern on the table and turned towards them. He pointed towards the books. "These books are the records of every single person that has arrived at the temple on business matters, and, of course, their businesses. Each book is a period of 5 years. If the person you are looking for had business with the temple, you will find them here." "Thank you," Thaelen said. "Much appreciated," Taela added. The dwarf didn't answer. He simply left them alone, and went back into the dark of the greater library. Thaelen got to work immediately. They were looking for the year 732. "There's so many," Taela said. She picked out a book. 261 to 265. How are we going to find the right book? "There's only one way," Thaelen said as he checked the books on the shelves. 756 to 760, he said to himself as he searched for the right book. It shouldn't be too far back. 751 to 755, he continued. Not long after, he found what he was searching for. 731 to 735, here it is. He pulled out the book and placed it on the desk, opened it, and began searching for Helthyr in the register. Fail, Love, Helm. Helthyr, Taela said, pointing at one of the names further down the list. Page 47. Thaelen turned to the given page. Several smaller pieces of parchment was laying on this page. He laid them aside and went top down. Halfway down the page he found it. Helthyr Lithsvyrd arrived on the 27th of April, 7:32 LGN. Books read Aniath Istin Imidia, The History of Daeronun, and an unmarked book. Final sum paid 40 gold pieces. He read. Taela whistled slightly. Steep sum. There is more, Thaelen said. Was discovered to be a magic user, fled the city before the gods came to arrest him. The unmarked book was never recovered. It is suspected that he stole it. Left several notes behind. Thaelen glanced over at the pieces of parchment. There was indeed writing on them. In my pursuit to discover the final resting place of Aniath Istin, I made an interesting discovery. Seems to be an unfinished manuscript. Was he working on a book? Taela asked. Thaelen continued. It seems that Daeronun, better known as the Magus priesthood, had a keen interest in the Starbow. Why they tried to find it remains a mystery. Neither did they find it, but it is still an interesting anecdote about one of the most mysterious cults in recorded history. He took a look at the other note. Most interesting indeed. The Aniath Istin Imidia. There seems to be information that is not to be found in any other item about the Starbow. It speaks of that which is known, the escape of the Dark Elves from some dark plane of existence, the Starbow being used to open a portal between our world and that foul place. But it also speaks of things I, a learned in the subject of Aniath Istin, have never heard of. Most tales say that the artifact was lost. Some even claim it was reclaimed by Nuvia. But this book speculates that the Starbow was stored away in a place named Udrida da Shirmina, the Vault of Shirmina. I have never heard of this vault, but perhaps it is connected to the Shrine of Shirmina. The Shrine of Shirmina, he said. Well, that makes our next goal clear. Anshira, the Dark Elf capital, Taela said, nodding. It was far away to the north, but at least they now knew where they had to go. He took the note and carefully placed it in his pocket. With any luck, the librarian and priestess would not search through the books any time soon. He put the book back and picked up the lantern. Well, maybe this journey was not for naught after all.